I like to think I know Kung Fu, but there are literally at least 60 to 100 styles I've not heard of. So let's start with the styles that I have heard of that you guys might not have heard of. Number 1. Out of convenience, since very ancient Chinese history, Chinese people have carried around and sat on these wooden stools. Sometimes it's best to fight and defend ourselves with what we carry. So it's no surprise a style of martial art evolved involving the wooden stool. So this guy's a little slower than some of the other people we might see later. You can see variety, various angles, right? There's upward motions. He even combines kicks. So you can hit with the legs of the chair or the stool. You can also hit with the seat part. This guy's a little faster. And look at that. You can hit with different parts of the leg. And that motion right there, it was like he was hitting the legs. This lady's really cool because she, first of all, this is probably sped up, but I liked how she used her feet, her lower body, you see, to make the stool vertical. So this grandpa, look at how fit he is, man. Look at that. It's a really good exercise, even if it's not trained really for self-defense. But I think there's a lot of good self-defense qualities. And guys, sorry about the editing on this, not my editing. I realized, doesn't this kind of look like how skateboarders would potentially use their skateboard to defend if they were attacked? So skateboarders, let me know. I think of Bartitsu, if you guys are familiar with the Western cane fighting system. For quite a while, a lot of Western countries, the men carried canes. So some martial art evolved involving canes. Number 2, imagine if your hands were shackled. Imagine if someone tied your hands, whether with a rope or with handcuffs. Could you fight that way? So for dramatic purposes, this guy actually has a rope around his hands, but usually this style is not trained with the rope around your hands. You're just supposed to mimic that there's rope around your hands. But look at that. He's got elbow techniques. He's got kicking techniques, but his hands are together. He just kicked dust into your face. But you can still use your hands to strike, and you can use your elbows. You see that? He's still throwing fists, but his hands are just together. Here's another interpretation. This is usually how it's practiced. You notice that he has his hands together, but there's no rope or cuffs, right? So this guy's not as athletic as the previous guy, but sometimes it's good to show this because then you can see how people with different body types, different athleticism do it. So this kid right here is also doing the same martial art. And of course, everyone moves differently, right? But I love that you're able to throw so many kicks still with your hands bound. Purportedly, this style was invented by Wu Song, who's a very famous semi-mythical warrior from the Song dynasty. He was in trouble with the law during a phase of his life, and he quite a few times was shackled up. The myth is, the legend is, that he invented this martial art while being locked up. So we'll look at one more. Here's another interpretation. And again, his hands are pretending to be bound, right? And very low stances. But again, we can see that your sense of balance isn't completely destroyed if your hands are bound. So this is something really cool to keep in mind. So I think it would be epic if the 52 blocks people in America had some kind of exchange with the shackles or the handcuff Kung Fu people in China. I think we'd have a really cool system. Number 3, we don't think of ducks as violent animals. But if you push a duck to the limit, whether you're threatening it or maybe you're threatening its young ducklings, sometimes it will charge towards you. So this next martial art, sometime in ancient Chinese history, was created when some dude who was bored, who probably practiced another style of Kung Fu, saw a duck fend off its territory or fend off itself. So look at this. Not too practical a move. This one, I mean, it's so cool how at their age, they're still able to use their knees like that, right? So kind of looks like a duck, right? Looks like a duck waddling a little bit. So this might be, he's blocking. This might be mimicking the duck's legs. So I think out of all the 3 martial arts that we've looked at, this is the most aesthetic one. This is the most that kind of maybe has limitations in its implementation. We humans, after all, don't have a beak, right? And we don't have claws. So there's just weapons we don't have. All the ones, this one is the most dance-like, right? This one's more kind of artistic interpretation, and maybe you could apply 1% of this to your sparring or your fight style. But it still is very neat that someone said, hey, we can create a wushu style from looking at ducks. So have you guys ever heard of this style? I actually have heard of this style. Out of the 3 that I showed you guys, this was actually the first style I ever heard of. Chinese history is very, very long. And the history of Kung Fu is also very, very long. There's a lot of styles that we just have never heard of outside of China. It's my mission now to give you guys more of this. What do you guys think? Let me know. I hope this does well, because if this does well, I will definitely do quite a few sequels. So if you like this, share it. Send it to people who might like Kung Fu history or just like Kung Fu or martial arts in general. And we'll see if we have enough views to do a sequel.